Rear Window, a masterpiece. The second of two films Alfred Hitchcock released in 1954, Rear Window concerned LB Jeff Jeffries, as played by James Stewart, as, while stuck in his apartment with a broken leg, he spies on his neighbours through his window. He slowly becomes convinced that one of his neighbours, a man named Thorwald, has murdered his wife, and becomes obsessed with solving the case, an obsession that eventually puts his girlfriend Lisa Fremont, as played by Grace Kelly, in danger. Even if you've never seen Rear Window, you're probably familiar with the premise. It's been homaged and parodied to death by this point, if for no other reason, it's a really compelling premise. But the thing that really sets Rear Window apart is the approach it takes to telling the story. The film is about voyeurism, and Hitchcock wants to make us almost complicit in Jeff's spying. So the entirety of the film is shot from inside Jeff's apartment. All of the action outside the apartment is shot from Jeff's window on lenses with long focal lengths to give the impression of spying on someone with a pair of powerful binoculars. At the end, the camera temporarily leaves the apartment, but only because Jeff has. At no point does the camera ever stray away from telling Jeff's subjective story about the rear window. Except for once. Towards the end of the film, a dog belonging to one of the neighbors turns up dead. As the owner retrieves the body of her pet, she screams at the rest of the neighborhood, demanding to know why someone would kill her dog. As she does, we get insert shots of two of Jeff's neighbors, a dancer who lives on the second floor, and a lonely woman who lives on the ground floor. For reference, this is the view of their apartments from Jeff's window, and these are the shots they get in this scene. These are, obviously, impossible from Jeff's point of view. For this scene, and this scene only, the film breaks its one rule. Why? Let's say you want to bring your audience's attention to something, a key plot point or a reveal. You want to make sure that the audience remembers this as very important. How do you go about doing that? One strategy would be breaking convention, strategically breaking the rules of your story to underline the point. Let's take an example. Let's look at Sam Mendes' 1917. This film was, in all the marketing leading up to it, pitched as one of those one long continuous shot films, following a soldier on a mission to save another unit from almost certain slaughter. As the film unfolds, it follows this rule carefully, masking cuts behind camera motion and visual effects work. However, a little over halfway through the movie, main character Lance Corporal Schofield cops a bullet to the helmet, falls down a flight of stairs, and is knocked out on impact. The film cuts to black. Seconds later, it cuts to a new shot of Schofield, hours after his fall, waking up and recovering from his fall. The film has broken its one rule. Why? In theory, this time-lapse could have been communicated with a change of light as the shot holds on Schofield lying at the bottom of the stairs. This certainly would have preserved the one-shot concept of the film. But this violent cut to black after an hour of following the seemingly unbroken shot shocks the audience. There is now a genuine suspense. When will Schofield wake up again? What's going to happen when he does? Will he have lost too much time? Will he no longer be able to save the other units? The cut to black leaves you alone with these questions for a second, before cutting back to Schofield as he recovers. It's effective work. If you're careful, breaking a convention like this can be used to get a response from the audience. Incidentally, this is also why you notice the difference between a good or a bad PG-13 F-bomb. In those films, the convention is that language like that is largely absent. So when the convention is broken, if done well, it can provide emotional weight, or make the audience laugh.
Open the fucking door!
Such is the case with Rear Window. Hitchcock has played by the rules of shooting the action of the film through Jeff's window the entire time. So if he is breaking this rule, it is for a damn good reason. He wants you to sit up and pay attention. The death of this dog is important. But why? Throughout the film, this dog has been digging around a garden in some flowers tended to by Mr. Thorwald. It's a detail that Jeff has noted but not paid as much attention to as Thorwald's strange trips at night or his keeping the windows of his bedroom closed. Moments before the dog turns up dead, a detective had ruled Thorwald out as a murderer, deflating Jeff's and Lisa's fascination with the story unfolding across from them. The story falls to a low point and settles down into quiet reflection for a moment as Jeff and Lisa debate the ethics of their snooping. Then, the dog dies. The film breaks its visual rules, showing us the neighbors up close. This jarring direction snaps the story out of its contemplation and sets the audience on high alert. If the death of the dog is having this much attention called to it, it has to be important. And it is. Minutes later, it's made plain who killed the dog. Thorwald. Through the breaking of his convention, Hitchcock has primed the audience to sit up and pay close attention, then deliver the whopper. Thorwald killed the dog, and most probably did kill his wife. With that reveal, the film hurtles into its climax as Jeff and Lisa, their interest renew, finally uncover Thorwald as a murderer. But there is more to it than that. Sure, breaking us out of Jeff's apartment momentarily is a shock to the audience that helps underline the killing and prime us for what comes next. Thematically, however, there is more going on here. As I noted earlier, much of the film is designed to make us complicit in Jeff's voyeurism. It's the entire point of shooting the film from Jeff's apartment on long lenses, or the use of deep focus cinematography to keep both Jeff and the neighbors in focus. We were not invited by the neighbors to watch their lives. We are intruding, except for when the dog dies. As the dog's body is returned to its owner, she addresses the courtyard, demanding an answer as to why someone would kill her dog. Here, the neighbors come together, sharing in the horror of what's been done. Jeff and Lisa are also made part of this community here. In between these shots of Miss Torso and Miss Lonely Hearts, yes, those are their names in the movie, a shot of Jeff and Lisa has been inserted. They are no longer idle spectators or voyeuristically peering into someone else's life. They are being addressed with everyone else by the woman's speech. They are a part of what's happened. Furthermore, we are no longer idle observers. We have been invited out of Jeff's apartment into the community. Thus, the cinematic language reflects this. We stop watching the neighbors from a distance like voyeurs. We step out and join them and share in their horror and sadness. It's really moving work. It's also worth making a note of who the camera brings us closer to, who we are asked to identify with when we step out amongst the community. Of all the neighbors, the newlywed couple, the struggling musician, etc., it's these two we focus on. See, Miss Torso and Miss Lonely Hearts are depicted through the film as leading different lives but with similar feelings of emptiness. The former is surrounded by men who she entertains as guests but doesn't really care for, and the latter is a lonely woman desperate for human connection. In their own ways, they are both lost and alone. But here, as we are brought together, these two share a moment in a way. They stand on their balconies, apart from one another, but they share the sadness at a loss of life. They share the horror of how someone could kill a dog. For a split second, even under terrible conditions, they are not alone. They are together, and we are with them too. Incidentally, this idea of moving away from the main character's point of view to instill empathy is something that Alfonso Cuarón also does to great effect in Children of Men. Much of the film is told from the subjective point of view of Theo, our main character, but every so often the camera sort of wanders away from Theo, taking in the bleak landscape of 2027 England and the state-sanctioned massacre of immigrants. It's never as jarring as it is in Rear Window, as it becomes part of the film's cinematic grammar pretty quickly, but it works to similar effect. We step out of the main character's subjective point of view and are brought closer to the people around him. And, like Rear Window, this helps to underline the point of the film, whether it's on the topic of fascism or, as Thelma Ritter says,
"We become a race of peeping Toms."
This little moment is, of course, a small part of the rich tapestry of suspense Hitchcock weaves in Rear Window, but I find it a compelling one nonetheless. It certainly provides a valuable lesson to filmmakers, I think, that it's perfectly okay to break the rules of your film as you establish them, but only for good reason. And, of course, you need to make sure those rules are clearly communicated in the first place. In the 1917 example I noted earlier, that jarring cut that breaks the one-shot rule is a little over an hour into the film. This scene in Rear Window happens 83 minutes into the piece, by which point the shot from Jeff's apartment scheme of the film has been going on so long that it's become routine. In fact, I'd stopped noticing it by this point of the film because it had been going on for so long. I only remembered that everything had been from the point of view of Jeff's apartment precisely because I was suddenly removed from it by this cut. As an audience rug pull, it could not be placed in a better spot. There isn't much else I want to add here. This was meant to be a short little video to highlight something I saw in a movie recently that I thought was kind of awesome. While the prevailing opinion seems to be that this shot is the most impactful one in the film, and to be fair, it is up there for me, it genuinely scared the crap out of me. For my money, these two edge out, just because of the pathos they provide in removing us from the setup we've become so familiar with. So remember, know the rules of your story inside and out, but if you find the need to, don't hesitate to break them once.